Good day, this is Teacher Luz of Camglish.com. Welcome to another video lecture using the book Essential Grammar in Use, 3rd edition by Raymond Murphy. Well, we have already finished studying Unit 6, right? So now, for today, what we will do is we will answer some exercises about our topic in Unit 6. I want to know if you learned something from our lecture or from our lesson. Are you ready? Okay, now for part 1, we will be answering 6.1, 6.2, and 6.3. 6.1. Write the negative. In Unit 6, we studied how to turn a positive sentence into negative, right? So, let's try to answer number 2. Number 1 is already answered as an example. Number 2. Jane plays the piano very well. To make that negative, you say Jane doesn't play the piano very well. Remember that for he, she, and it, and for proper nouns, we use doesn't, okay? Next, they know my phone number. To make that negative, what do you say? That's good. They don't know my phone number. Number 4, we work very hard. How will you make that negative? You say, we don't work very hard. Next, he has a bath every day. To make that negative, we say, he doesn't have a bath every day. Or you can also say he doesn't take a bath every day. Now for the last one, you do the same thing every day. To make that negative, you say you don't do the same thing every day. So far, you're doing a good job. Are you ready to move on to 6.2? Okay. Study the information and write sentences with like. Now, you can see that we are talking about Ben and Sophie, and then Kate, and then of course you. Alright? Now, let's look at this one. Ben and Sophie like classical music. Kate, does she like classical music? The answer is no. So you can say, Kate doesn't like classical music. What about you? Do you like classical music? Well, you can write down your answer here on the blank. Number 2. Ben and Sophie, do they like boxing? No, they don't. So Ben and Sophie don't like boxing. What about Kate? Yes, she likes boxing. So you can say that Kate likes boxing. Good job. What about you? Do you like boxing? Well, you can write down your answer here on the blank. Now, let's go to number 3. We are talking about horror films, right? Well, personally, I think horror films are good. What about Ben and Sophie? Yes, they do like horror films. So you could say, Ben and Sophie like horror films. What about Kate? Does she like horror films? No, she doesn't. So you can say, Kate doesn't like horror films. What about you? Do you like horror films? You can write down your answer on the blank. Make it a good one. Now we can move on to the last exercise for our part 1. Write about yourself. Use I never, I often, or I don't very often. Now, remember these words? These are your adverbs of frequency, right? Okay. Now, number 1 is already finished. The examples are, you can say, I don't watch TV very often, I often watch TV, or I never watch TV. What about number 2? Do you go to the theater? You can say, I never go to the theater, I often go to the theater, or you can also say, I don't go to the theater very often. Those are your choices. Let's go to number 3. Ride a bicycle. Do you like riding a bicycle? Your answers could be, I never ride a bicycle, I often ride a bicycle, or I don't ride a bicycle very often. Number 4. Eat in restaurants. Do you eat in restaurants? Your answers could be, yes, I never eat in restaurants, or I often eat in restaurants, or I don't eat in restaurants very often. Remember that when you are using I don't and very often, you put your phrase in the middle. Okay? Next, travel by train. I never travel by train, or I often travel by train, or I don't travel by train very often. Well, that ends part 1 of our exercises. I hope you stick around for part 2 so we can complete the exercises about Unit 6. See ya!